Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you are dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race.
Well, he's clearly right if you look at the numbers. I mean, it's weird. He could say the same thing today and it would still apply. So nothing's changed since the 60s.
Yeah, to know that he died in 1965 and that the words that he spoke are true still for our community today is just horrifying.
Everybody, I hope and pray that you are doing well. I'm your host, John Amanchukwu. This is Disturbing the Peace, and we will disturb the peace tonight. I have a phenomenal set and group of panelists that have joined me tonight for a phenomenal conversation. I'm going to pull this up and show it for you right now, and then I want to get everyone's take on the panel. When we come back, we'll be starting with you, Zinga, and then we'll go around. I want to get your response and feedback to this clip. Watch.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. They see that the whites are so evenly divided that every time they vote, the race is so close, they have to go back and count the votes all over again. And which means that any block, any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who'll go to the White House and who'll stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You can keep Johnson in Washington, D.C., or you can send him back to his Texas cotton patch. You're the one who sent Kennedy to Washington. You're the one who put the present Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. The whites were evenly divided. It was the fact that you threw 80% of your votes behind the Democrats that put the Democrats in the White House. When you see this, you can see that the Negro vote is the key factor. And despite the fact that you are in a position to be the determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first, and they put you last. Because you're a chump. A political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you, because you're a chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you are dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race. And what kind of alibi do they come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Dixiecrats. Now, back during the days when you were blind, deaf, and dumb, ignorant, politically immature, naturally you went along with that. But today, as your eyes come open and you develop political maturity, you're able to see and think for yourself. And you can see that a Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat.
All right, and Zinga, what's your response to what Malcolm X had to say about Black voters, them being political chumps and traitors?
Well, he's clearly right if you look at the numbers. I mean, it's weird. He could say the same thing today and it would still apply. So nothing's changed since the 60s. I made a video maybe 3 weeks ago where I said Black people are the most easily manipulated people in the country. They pick on one thing, which is race, and every single time they're going to vote Democrat no matter what. I'm not even sure it's entirely the promises that are made. I think really what it is they're still mad about slavery. They're still mad about the 3 strikes rule. They're still mad about stop and frisk. They're still mad about Jim Crow. And so what they do is they vote Democrat because at least it's kind of a middle finger to America. And it's clear, too, that Democrats don't love this country. So who are they going to vote for? They're going to vote for Democrats. I think Malcolm X is completely correct.
All right.
I totally agree with what he said. And it's like Nzinga said, the fact that it's 2025 and it still applies is crazy to me. And yes, that's exactly what Black people do. They actually are idolatrous because they worship skin color.
Yep.
And so this is what the Democrats do. They pull on the Black people's heartstrings. They come emotional all the time to get that vote and keep them beholden to the Democrat Party. And it's frustrating because as we were listening to that, Malcolm X was calling them chumps, and telling them they were traitors to their race. But today they would consider us the traitors.
Right.
They call us the coons and the Uncle Toms. Yet we are the ones who actually believe Black people can actually do something.
Yep.
Whereas the Democrats look at them as if they are ignorant and only need a handout. And they fall in line each and every time, and they get jerked around by their heartstrings each and every time and vote. I know this isn't just about Black women,
Sure.
but Black people vote Democrat most of the time. And here we are in 2025, and we're still saying the same thing, going around the same tree, and it's frustrating.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, to know that he died in 1965 and that the words that he spoke are true still for our community today is just horrifying. And what you would expect is that for years to have passed, for us to have gotten it by now.
Yeah.
I think that there was genuine ignorance at the time. I believe that people really had a hope that a certain group of people, the Democrats, would represent our interests and represent the things that we needed. 40 to 50, 60 years later, there's no excuse.
Yep.
It's just plain a willingness to just not make progress, to an unwillingness to do better, an unwillingness to follow the Lord and just do the things that we know that we need to do to make our communities better. And it makes me miss the time when we had strong male Black voices like this.
Right.
Where can you go to hear men speak and be able to speak like this and speak to a large audience of Black people? And this used to be what we had in church. This used to be what the preacher would do. And now most of our preachers have become just wholesale Democrat Party sycophants. And so we just don't hear that level of truth anymore. So it's really a shame.
They're the true sellouts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
Indeed.
100%.
Yeah, I agree with all of these ladies. It's extremely unfortunate. I mean, what he said was timeless.
Yep.
And it's, when I'm out, we're doing engagement events with the Frederick Douglass Foundation and just hearing or working at the polls or helping in elections. And I talk to some of my Democrat friends or just Democrat voters in general. It's like they know their history. They know the truth of the Republican Party. And they still say, literally, I don't want to turn against my people. And I'm like, look around your neighborhood. Has anything improved in 30 years? Well, yeah, I know, but the white man this and the white, and you're like, I've heard this so much. It's a definition of insanity.
Yep.
Keep continuing to do the same thing and expect a different result. And these policies are destroying your community. And yeah, it's extremely unfortunate. I will say the great thing about it is the tide is turning. As you just said in your opening, 28% of Trump got 28% of the Black vote. And so because of social media and people actually doing their homework and commentators like yourself and others, they're actually going to do some research. And that's what I usually encourage them to do. Go read your history. Go learn more about what policies before you go check that ballot of who you're going to vote for.
Yes. Well, Crystal, you mentioned something that the voice of Malcolm X represents voices that we used to have, right, in the Black community. Who do we turn to receive this kind of information today?
Each other. I mean, we don't, who can we trust now? Because just listening to Valerie when she said people say they don't want to turn against their people. Well, who are your people? Especially if you profess Christianity. If you're a Christian, your people should be those who follow God. So what do they mean when they say turn it against my people? It goes back to the skin worship and just focusing on melanin, which actually means nothing.
Right.
What policies are your people promoting? What policies are they buying into? That's something to look at. Are you putting skin over God, the kingdom of God?
Right.
I think that's important to look to ask.
Sure.
Well, for me, at Bishop Wooden, we hear it every Sunday, right there from the pulpit. And Vince Everett Ellison, you got your Brandon Tatums, yourself, and others that have boldly come out on social media and calling these leaders out. They stand boldly and speak against us, calling us names like coons and
cockroaches.
We the runaway slaves, which
Right.
to me, a runaway slave is a badge of honor.
Okay.
Saying that, hey,
Got out of slavery.
I'm better than a slave. I can get out and make my own way.
That's right.
Okay. So
I honestly don't know, because we can have these people that they talk in the pulpit or you see them on a screen, but if you don't have anyone in your life reinforcing it, fathers, for instance, I think that's extremely difficult. And we're talking about women and how they vote and men and how they vote. Well, what's one of the differences between men and women? Emotion and logic. So if you have dads in the home that are backing up what the preacher said or what the influencer said with logic instead of the female emotion, we probably have some differences in the community. So honestly, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I know you're a preacher as well, and I appreciate that. But the men in the community have got to step up and kind of take back the authority in the Black community, or else we're cooked.
Right.
I agree.
Are Black men today desirable?
Well, I'm married to a white dude, so I can't exactly.
Yeah. It's a logical question. When you consider the fatherlessness rate, right, 70% of homes are led by a single parent. There has to be a reset at some point. Why are Black homes broken? Is it because we have been, we don't have a desire to marry? When you consider the 1890s, from the 1890s all the way up to the 1950s, the Black marriage rate rivaled that of whites. All right. But things didn't change in the Black community when it comes to our marriage rate until the 60s, when you start getting welfare states. And Lyndon B. Johnson came along with this Great Society plan. Are Black men desirable today as Black women? Where have Black men failed? What is the issue in the Black community with Black men getting married to Black women and valuing Black women? What's going on?
I mean, I have a couple of thoughts. When I was dating, you meet a Black conservative man and you're like, oh, this is great. But like Shamika said, what do they bow to? It's always race. There's always going to be something about race. And I'm like, I want a man that worships God. I don't want a man that worships race. And that's what he's always talking about. And that's what he's mad about. Right. So, what did I do? I married a super duper white dude. The other thing too is my dad's not in my life. I met him a few times. It was by his choice. He decided to leave. So I guess maybe subconsciously that made Black men less desirable to me. I'm not sure, but I think Black women have to decide what kind of men they want. We are the gatekeepers to sex. So we got to close that door. The door is always open. So they get the cow, they get the milk too. And you have to be a woman that the man wants to marry. Like, I don't want anyone else having that woman. But if there's just free love and free sex all over the place among Black women, you're not going to get married. You're not going to have a man that sticks around if you get pregnant. So I think if women start closing that door, shutting down that factory, I think things might change in a generation, because I mean, they are men.
Sure.
Well, for me, it's the traditions have been lost, specifically Christian traditions, as in courting. That's what they did back in my grandmother's day.
Unpack courting for people that don't know what you're talking about. What
courting means
straight
dating to
old school.
The insult would be marriage, dating to get married, getting to know each other to get married.
Okay.
Where it's now, it's hookup culture, and when you
unpack hookup culture,
is,
what is that, and what does it mean to date today?
Yeah, it's let's just have sex. We don't really necessarily want a relationship.
Okay. So is that what you say? I mean, does the person that say, I just want to have sex, I don't want to have a relationship, let's just get it on? Is that how it works? I mean, I know what's the agreement? What's on the contract?
Well, me being newly single 8 years ago, I had to learn the language and the culture, what all this stuff meant. So it's fairly new to me, but I am totally against it. It has made it a challenge to meet men that have that traditional conservative mindset. And, to speak to 70% of Black homes are led by single women. So they have taken on the role of being the man and the woman, the father and the mother. So they have taken on a lead role, which was not designed for them by God. The man was supposed to be the head of the wife, the head of the home. So it has caused us as society to be out of order. And if we're talking about why do Black women vote mainly Democrat, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You could not get welfare, food stamps, or any government assistance if you had a man in the home. Okay. I was talking to a Black man recently who immigrated here, and he lived in an apartment complex. So, we go back and forth because he's like, Valerie, you're a conservative, and we would have this conversation. But I said, I said, you didn't know the Democratic Party pushed these policies on single women. That's why there's no father in the home. And it's like he had an epiphany. He was like, what? Is that why all these women live alone? You see the importance of understanding policy and what you're voting for. They did a whole study about it, and I saw the video years ago where they calculated the number of funds being allocated per state based on how many babies were born to single Black mothers.
Wow.
So they anticipated. And this is why they fight so hard against it. They're going to make sure you qualify for these benefits if there's no man in your life.
Yeah. To answer your question, I want to say yes, Black men are still desirable, at least for me. But I will say, if you are looking for a conservative man, and like Nzinga pointed out, someone who worships God, then I do think that brings the pool down a lot smaller. I'm thinking about what Valerie said when she said there's this hookup culture. There is, but one of the things I think I'm very proud of, my daughter is actually in a relationship. And one of the first things they discussed was marriage. And we're not going to go into this thinking, well, let's just see what happens.
Sure.
You know, her thing outright was, I want to be married.
Good.
I'm in college. Yes, I'm, getting my degree in accounting. But when I get married and I have children, I want to stay at home and raise the children just like my mom did. So this was
Good.
like upfront, the conversation. And so I think that it is important for us to actually teach our kids. I know what society is doing, but we're not doing that. And also, I believe that feminism has had
Yes.
a huge effect on both men and women
Yep.
and how they approach dating. And a lot of people aren't getting married. We have the women who don't want to choose from weak men, and we have the men who don't want to choose from manly women.
Yep.
So until we get back in our places and in rightful order first with God, we can't be in order with each other. So I think that's what we have to get back to, just tradition, going back to the beginning. What did God create us to do or to be as women? And what did God create men for? We're supposed to help men, but so many times now we're in competition instead of being compliments to men.
Right.
And so I don't feel like women have taken on the role of the mother and the father. I feel like they think they have.
Yeah.
Sure.
But you can't be the man and the woman. You can't be the mother and the father. And if we look at what's happening to communities, if that's what they believe, they're doing a terrible job in both roles.
I think that,
What's that?
I was going to say, I definitely think that Black men are desirable. And I think that
I hope so.
one in particular,
I'll tell you.
but I do believe the Bible, and I do believe that the man is the head. I do believe the structure that the word gives as it relates to the household. And I think that with the man being the head, I think in our community particularly, what has been a missing link is really accountability. I was listening to a video today, and you're hearing a lot of this right now in the midst of the shutdown. People are saying, SNAP benefits are on the hook. So now y'all women, you're going to go back to that man, go back to that man. Because, when the benefits came, the women just kicked the men out. And I'm thinking, well, that's part of what happened. But, when the benefits came, the men left, and I think that as the head, you have to take that role as the lead. And I know that our men at that time had significant challenges. It's hard to be the head. We know that there are all kinds of Supreme Court cases from that time where there were disparities in employment. There were difficulties that men dealt with, but I don't think that that's so much the case today. And again, just going back to Black voices, where are the Black men who challenge Black men to be leaders? Where are the Black men that challenge Black men to be fathers? What would happen if Jamal Bryant would spit and fuss and yell about men who don't take care of their children and their wives and who impregnate women and men in the congregations in a city like Atlanta? So many single men with no interest in having a wife and being progenitors. What if we had more men just saying that to our men? And I think that with that, because women are the gatekeepers to sex, but men are the gatekeepers to marriage.
Yeah.
If he doesn't buy the ring and ask you to marry him, you can't get married. And so what we've had for so many years are people coming together, living together, making children in what they call situationships, and nobody's the head, nobody's the follower. We're just doing our thing, floating along. And it creates a level of uncertainty where people are spending time together, but going nowhere, not really building legacy. And I just think that I certainly agree. And I think that there's certainly feminism and a lot that we have to do as Black women. But I think with the man being the head, I think that's a place where we have to start, because I still believe that most of our community voices are Black men. We still have the Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons on that side, and people like you and others on the more conservative side. We have to shake the consciousness of our brothers, and that's something I hear you do a lot. That's something I hear Bishop Wooden children do a lot. You go to upper room, Bishop Witness saying, y'all men are here in your 30s and no wife, what's wrong with you? How many churches do you hear? Are men challenged to hear that? And I don't think that happens enough. And so we just don't have, we have a lot of children and we have a lot of people coming together, having relationships and having sex, and having fun. We just don't have the families.
Right.
Yeah. Just to add, somebody like Jamal Bryant would first have to repent.
Right.
So I think so many of them
right.
are not stepping up and saying what needs to be said because their own lives are not in order.
Right.
And so it's very hard to tell someone else what they need to do when you haven't swept around your own front door.
Right.
Amen.
And so for a lot of them, they stand in the pulpit and they just say what they know people want to hear. And instead of going with the word, because it would convict them first. And they don't want to be convicted. They want to make sure they're getting the money and they're well taken care of. And we know that you can't serve God and money. So you're going to have to choose. And many of them don't want to choose. And they want to stand in the pulpit and just say what the people want to hear because it's the easiest.
Well, they're bought and paid for by the Democrat Party. They're, church plants is what I call them. And, the liberal feminists have, indoctrinated a generation of women by using these terms, toxic masculinity, and we don't need a man, all this modesty and,
anything men
can do, we could do, equal pay and all those terms is oppressive, So if you hear that all the time, even me in high school, listening to certain rappers at that time, I'm thinking I'm an independent woman.
Right.
I don't need a man. I can do whatever I want.
Boss chick.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't boss chick at the time. But I was just in high school. But that mindset was beginning to develop because I kept hearing it all the time.
Right.
And by the time I got out of high school, those traditions where my grandmother was counteracting and speaking to me about, no, you need to get married. You need to have a family and to do it in that order. So.
Thank you. We hear about the hookup culture, but there's this thought that white women don't get horny either. and white men don't get horny either.
Okay.
So we talk about hookup culture and what happens in the Black community when that's the case. But it seems as if the white man and the white woman, they do come together and they have sex as well, but they get married. But for some reason in the Black community, we get horny and we just don't get married. What's going on there? What is the difference? And this all goes towards the conversation, since I'm talking to a panel of women today. Are Black men desirable? What's going on with the hookup culture in the Black community? How come, it doesn't lead to she gives it up, he falls in love, they get married? It seems like that works on the white side, but doesn't work on the Black side.
Well, you have it in the music industry. Baby mama culture is celebrated. You had a song, that's just my baby daddy.
Right.
That wasn't funny. Because we know what a single mother's life is like without a father and support. And again, it just saddens me when I see that. And they know, again, policies that are put in place. If I have a child, the government's going to support me. If I have another child, I'm going to get more money from welfare or more food stamps. And so it's just an endless cycle. I can be on Section 8. And there's no requirement for me to get off, no encouragement for me to go to school, get a degree, and to better myself. Oh, you could stay on these benefits for decades. Where does the the self-improvement come in to, I've talked to women, hey, you have a gift to do hair, you have a gift to cook or whatever. And you could go to school and become an entrepreneur and start your own business. And to them, it's like foreign. And it's unfortunate. But I think it's because of the culture. They celebrate it. And if you didn't grow up with a father in your home, well, guess what? Your mom or your grandmother or whoever who didn't have a man in that home, it just gets reinforced.
Yes.
Mm.
There's no value of the men because, if you, like she just said, if you don't have a father in the home, you don't necessarily understand the value of men and how important they are. And society has told us, again, we don't need a man, simply because we have so many women feeling like, they can do whatever they want to, and they can make their own money now, call their own shots. What do we need a man for? If I want to have a baby, I can just hook up with one, get pregnant, have my own child. Or if I'm rich enough, for a lot of these elite Black women, they're the judges, the lawyers, they'll go to the sperm bank and they'll have a baby. There's no value with men because people are so out of order. Again, it's going back to the beginning. And then when you have so many women who have devalued themselves down to just a big behind, men are saying, hey, if that's all you're good for in my life, I can go to Tina, to Tanya, to Sarah. Like, if all you are is a WAP, I can get WAP wherever. There's no value. We're not presenting ourselves as wives, because the Bible says when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing. You should already be presenting yourself as a wife. But so many of these women are only presenting themselves as whores, as hoes and holes, and anybody can, you can get a hole anywhere.
Sure.
So if you're not presenting yourself valuable and as a wife, then what's the point? For a lot of men, they're saying, what's the point? And then women, again, are so clueless, and feminism has just warped our brains that they don't understand who men really are and the importance that they hold in just not only our lives and our families and society.
I agree. I went to a PWI. I went to NC State. And so, everybody gets hot, certainly. Everybody gets hot. Everybody gets a popping.
The Black people, the white people, Asian, Hispanic.
Everybody.
WAP everywhere. Cultural WAP.
I have, my roommates were all white, and I'll just say
they were holy. They didn't have sex.
I'll just say I was the only one that didn't bring boyfriends home to stay overnight. Okay, the only one. And being a Black girl, you get insight from both sides, because our men date both races, so you hear the comparison. So everybody's doing what they're doing, but again, there's a different culture for those males. His daddy, his mama expects for him to get married. There's not just an expectation on her. It's not just the women in the community saying, girl, you ain't married yet. There is an expectation on him to start a family, to get a wife and get married. And when you're in company of people, when you're among men your age, there's an expectation. They assume that you have a wife. They assume that you have children. And, for the men, that's just the assumption that they have. So I think that it's just a different culture. That's why I said what I said before. Where are the men who are challenging the men, to be a progenitor? We used to hear words like that, phrases like that, you're the progenitor of your race, which means you're a seed bearer, and it's your responsibility to carry out the seed, to carry out the legacy. We don't hear that anymore. Everybody's a star, an individual doing their own thing, and
independent contractor.
Yeah. And it just hurts. It hurts the family. It hurts the men.
I've had this, just one little thing. I've had this conversation with my husband of what's the difference and why. And he says there's still shame in white culture. So if you get a girl pregnant, that's a no-no for most whites. And for the woman, I think a lot of them abort their kids and then they take Plan B. They'll illegally get abortion pills because of the shame of it. So they're doing the same thing, but because of the cultural difference, they get rid of the evidence, I think.
It's not celebrated.
I agree.
It's more of an honorable thing to do. A few of my white friends that got pregnant out of wedlock, and it was just an automatic thing. And the men who they were dating, they got them pregnant. It wasn't even an argument. It was just known, I am to marry her.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
And it was passed down from the parents that this is not something we do. We're not gonna abandon I'm a father now. I'm not going to abandon my child.
And
Mhm.
because we're 3 generations into bastards having bastards,
Mm.
we have a lot of Black women who, when they do raise sons, they're not even raising them to be husbands. They're raising them to be their husband
Yeah,
because
you're
they don't
right.
have a man, but
Mhm.
they're not raising them to go out here and get their own wife. It's just, again, it's the different culture.
I don't know if y'all have read it's Black Rednecks and White Liberals.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell.
And yeah, they talk about the Northern Britons. They came over here, they moved to the South, and they were very promiscuous. They fought all the time. They were very violent people. Well, who do they live around? They lived around American Blacks.
Mhm.
So like the Northern Blacks and the white Northerners were very different from the Southerners. The white Northerners didn't even like the white Southerners because they were so what we would call ratchet.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like deeply rooted into our culture, and we have to make conscious decisions to reject it, or else we're just going to keep perpetuating the same thing.